Welcome to the Mondoweiss podcast. I'm your host, Dave Reed. At Mondoweiss, we cover the movements, activists, and policymakers who affect the struggle for freedom in Palestine. Happy New Year to all of our listeners, and welcome to the first Mondoweiss podcast episode of 2022. In November of last year, a Palestinian Day of Solidarity was held in Philadelphia. At the event, Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney delivered a proclamation in solidarity with the Palestinians. Our U.S. correspondent Michael Arria spoke with one of the local organizers, Jude Husein.
At Mondoweiss, we're always very interested in how the fight for Palestine breaks down for people across the country within their own communities. For somebody who maybe isn't familiar with Philadelphia when it comes to this issue, before we get to the day, I was wondering if maybe you could set the scene for us in terms of, is there a large Palestinian community in Philly? Does that community have inroads into local politics? What's the state of Palestine activism there? Just any information that you think might be important for people to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms specifically of Philadelphia, according to the census, there's thousands of Arabs. And within that, there's thousands of Palestinians from all across Palestine, from the north to the south to the cities. So we have a couple thousand Palestinians that reside in Philadelphia. We have business owners such as GQ Aviation, a flight school that is owned and operated by a Palestinian, multiple, food service businesses that are operated by Palestinians. So, the Palestinian community here is pretty strong as it comes to entrepreneurs, as it comes to students, community, just in general. The Philly area specifically in that realm has a strong Palestinian hold. When it comes to politics, there's really no Palestinian representation in the city of Philadelphia government, which, is a little bit concerning, right? Because there's so many intellectuals. Palestinians are intellectuals, they're scholars, they're lawyers and doctors and entrepreneurs. So there's that, and there's activists. So it's a little bit concerning that there's no Palestinian representation in formal political office.
I wanted to talk about the event in terms of, you don't see this kind of event obviously organized very often across the United States. Talk to me a little bit about how it was organized and how it ultimately came about.
My effort spans to about 2 years ago, right? I think a lot of people, so in Philadelphia, we have the Parkway where there are flags from every single country almost every single country that is represented on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. And then also in Philadelphia, we have flag raisings. Now, this doesn't mean your flag is represented on the Parkway. It just means that, there is about a 20-minute ceremony where a flag is being raised for a community that resides in Philadelphia, right? So that celebrates that, there's this heritage and culture that resides in Philadelphia, not necessarily that, there is a flag on the Parkway. So throughout the span of 2 years, I think there were different efforts trying to raise a flag on the Parkway and have it there permanently, and also having just a flag raising, and we just wanted to have Palestine represented in any way possible. So after a lot of different organizers realized that efforts were kind of sporadic, they were separate. We all came together, and a team of 4. So I'm one of 4 that came together and, said, what's going on? Why are we getting rejected for the flag on the flag on the Parkway? Why are we being rejected for a flag raising? There are thousands of Palestinians that reside in Philadelphia. What is this? So then come to know that, apparently the policy, which is not public, stated there needs to be a consulate in the United States of America for us to have a flag raising. But Puerto Rico doesn't have a consulate in the United States of America, right? There's so many other countries that are represented on the Parkway and that have their respective flag raisings that don't have a consulate. So I was just in utter shock, right? It's right there in your face. It's right there, plain as day. And to be told that was in itself a discrimination. That was just not what we are going to stand for. We're not asking for special treatment. We're not asking for a special process. We're not asking to jump through hoops. We want to do it the right way within the system. So the conversation went onward with the city of Philadelphia. And I said, well, November 29th is the International Day of Solidarity for the Palestinian people by the UN. And it is celebrated globally through conferences, through flag raisings, through, shows, whatever the case may be. And Philadelphia is going to have something. And we are requesting the mayor to show up. We are asking for elected political, local, and state officials to show up and recognize a community that has lived in Philadelphia since all the way we can prove that we've been here since the 1950s, that we've contributed socially, economically, culturally to the city of Philadelphia. That is a sanctuary city, that is an open city that allows anyone and everyone to come and really build a life here. So that was a little bit of the conversation that happened. And the mayor came out, he gave a formal proclamation. We had officials on the local state level, and I want to say almost every single level of government was there, all the way up to Congress, which was really phenomenal.
I wanted to actually touch on something you just said. You mentioned that Mayor Kenney attended. He faced a lot of backlash, it seemed, from local pro-Israel groups. I'm wondering if you could address that at all. And I'm also wondering, since this event happened, if there's been any additional backlash locally.
Yeah, absolutely. Mayor Kenney did show up. He gave his remarks. He handed the formal proclamation. And that was really a groundbreaking moment. We experienced, we had a letter that got sent out from the Israeli ambassador from New York City, asking Mayor Kenney to withdraw his support. And, that is just a narrative that we've seen time and time again. This wasn't about Israel or Palestine. This was about a Palestinian community that represents, Palestine here in the United States of America, that, they are trying to occupy us and change the narrative here as well. And I think the support of Mayor Kenney showed that Philadelphia does not back down to bullies. And that's what simply it was. The local backlash that we received was someone trying to bully us, bully a voice. And I think the message was clear as day. We're not going to back down. We're here. We're alive. We exist. We are in all forms of things. Like I said, we're scholars. We're business owners. We're all types of things. And I think after the event, I think everyone was just in shock. Like, oh my God, this is a statement. This is history. And this is going to be a reoccurring day. And we're not going to go away. And there's a point I really want to make. Someone said at the event, you can occupy us over there for the time being, but you can't occupy us here too. And I think that is such a strong, strong statement that, I said throughout my speech. And I think just the support that we've received really overpowers the hatred that we received too.
This really does feel like a historic event in terms of the entire country. I'm wondering, were you aware of any similar events being held throughout the U.S., or have you been in contact with any activists who are looking at, see Philadelphia as kind of an inspiration to do this themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had many activists reach out and, state how proud and how inspired they are. I mean, we have Jersey City, who had their first formal flag raising a week before this. That in itself was historic. I mean, we had the Arab American Institute cover this and, pave the way for other cities to, hey, if you want to do this, reach out to these organizers, and, this was very hard to pull off because of the powers that be, right? The political atmosphere, the tension that no one wants to be labeled anti-Semitic. But this isn't anti-Semitism, right? Like, Jews and Muslims are united. They have been united, but that is what the narrative always wants to switch to. But that is not the case. This is not a religion issue. This is strictly a political, issue at play, where I think different cities are now looking and saying, hey, like, this is phenomenal. We want to check this out. And I don't have permission to say who reached out to me just yet. But yeah, we had 3 or 4 other cities say this is absolutely phenomenal. But that fear of being bullied into a corner is still there and still present. But it's breaking apart slowly but surely. And I think this event definitely proves that.
I wanted to ask about a shift when it comes to support for the Palestinian cause within, communities in the U.S. Something I've noticed many times this year, speaking with activists, is that they identify the recent attack on Gaza as an event that really seemed to push people in their communities to come around on the issue who maybe otherwise would have had a blind spot or inspired people to educate themselves on the issue, maybe progressives or liberals who hadn't historically. I'm wondering if you've seen a similar shift within Philadelphia when it comes to the work you do.
Absolutely. I think, people are so much more curious, especially now with social media covering a lot more over the past year with the attacks on Gaza, with Sheikh Jarrah and what happened there over the summer, and how, someone from Long Island can go to a different country and say, hey, if I don't take it, someone else will. And that shift that people want to learn, well, how is that? Like, how is that possible? And what we thought was truly possibly a democratic state, like how did that even come to play? Like, why don't Palestinians have the same rights as Israelis? Why is that even up for debate? Why is that even a question that someone can just come into your neighborhood and take what's yours? But definitely, I've seen an extreme shift, especially with social media. People always ask me questions. Tell me about Palestine. Tell me what it's like being a Palestinian, or tell me about, do Israelis and Palestinians hate each other? Like, what's going on there? I think there has been a serious shift. And I think for the most part, it's been social media, not the mainstream media, but those local activists at work. Really trying to combat the misinformation, the destruction of the narratives changing, to try to battle, there's so many different ways that take away from the Palestinian cause, and at the end of the day, it's very simple, like peace for the Palestinian people, peace for the Palestinian people. I can't express that enough, and understanding it. And I always leave someone when they say, what can we do? Right. I say, well, you have a network of people that you can speak to them, organize, build that trust, that community trusted messenger. That's the first step of everything, really educating people, and not through hatred, but through open dialogue, and ask those hard questions that are uncomfortable.
Well, this has been really informative. Thanks so much for talking to me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to our show, a production of Mondoweiss.net. The music is from Sound of Picture. Visit our site to sign up for free daily and weekly newsletters on Palestine, Israel, and related U.S. politics. If you're enjoying our podcast, please consider becoming a donor by visiting Mondoweiss.net/donate. Mondoweiss is a nonprofit publication, and every donation of any amount helps sustain our work. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and please leave a rating and review to help other listeners find our show.